My name is Nathan Kitada. I'm with Maker Studios, which is one of the largest multi-channel YouTube networks. I am formerly the Director of Operations, now the Director of Branded Integration for the Game Station, which is our video game division, and we are the second largest gaming network on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Richard Scott, and I'm from Axis Animation. We're an animation studio in the UK, working a lot with video game clients, agencies, and other marketers doing not just games content. We do a lot of trailer work, cut scenes. We know games really well.
Thanks, guys. So these are both great partners of Ayzenberg, and we've worked with them quite a bit in the past. And I think today we're really talking about where we're headed, the changing landscape. When I started the video side of our business at Ayzenberg over 13 years ago, it was very simple. There were two pieces of video being asked of you. There was the trailer for E3, because that was the only place we pretty much showed, and then there was a television commercial. And these days that's changed considerably. I'm really going to start with talking about that right trailer. I mean, you know, there's the old adage of you only get one chance to make a first impression is still very alive today, and the announced trailer is probably that most important moment for a game to set their IP, to set expectations, to even get the developer and the whole marketing department excited about their property before the game is anywhere near where it needs to be. And Richard's company, Axis, made a trailer, I don't know, a couple years ago, was it? Yeah. For a game called Dead Island that I'd say was the perfect storm of amazingness. And it really put a game on the map that no one actually expected, you know, to do any business. And I sort of say to Richard, just tell us a little bit about that experience, just starting from how they Deep Silver came to you guys and sort of the creation process.
Sure. Well, we spend probably 50-50 split of our time working with agencies like Gary and Ayzenberg, but also working directly with publishing teams and brand managers and marketing teams. And we were lucky enough to be approached by Deep Silver directly. And
not that we recommend that. Just kidding.
Yeah, we wouldn't encourage that, obviously. And you know, they kind of came to us and said, you know, we've got this game. This is where it's at right now. The game had been in development for quite a long time, and that was one of their perceived challenges. Was okay, people sort of know about this game. Some people have maybe written it off. So we want to come back with a big splash. That was the big thing. And, you know, to give them massive amounts of credit, they wanted to take a risk. They were willing to take a risk. They said, you know, they almost had a bit of a what do we have to lose sort of attitude in a way. So they came to us and went, yeah, we want to take a big risk here. We want to do something daring, something that's going to cause a real kind of stir. But we perceived that meant cause a stir in video games, you know, cause a stir with gamers. We didn't in any way predict what was going to happen with the Dead Island trailer, where everyone was talking about it, and we were getting phone calls from Hollywood and agents and all sorts of crazy stuff that we just didn't expect. But the great thing about the opportunity as well was that we got time. There was time to massage the idea into something that we all believed in. And it was a very collaborative experience between ourselves, Stu Aitken, who's one of my colleagues and the director of the piece, worked very closely with Malta and the other guys at Deep Silver, working on the scripts and changing those scripts and changing them a lot, and you know, ripping some up and discarding them completely. I think when they first approached us with the project, they had a kind of probably a page of A4, half a page of A4 maybe, of kind of, this is kind of something we were thinking of, had a family in it. That was one of the things that kind of was there at the start. But all the things like, let's play it in reverse and let's, you know, slow motion and all that sort of stuff, that just came out of the process of kind of evolving the idea and looking for different ways to treat it, because, you know, the guys at Deep Silver were very aware that they didn't want it to come across as too, well, this sounds maybe weird in the context of what actually happened, but too kind of brutal and too, they didn't want it to be like schlock horror. They wanted it to be something different. And that's where the ideas of sort of slow motion and the choice in music and all of these things started to evolve out of there. And yeah, it was one of those pieces where you're working on it, and you know, I'm not working on it directly, unfortunately, anymore, and so I'm watching it from afar, and I'm kind of seeing it evolve. And then one day, I sat down and I watched, you know, essentially the previs. So the motion capture had been done, but we were watching the previs for it. First, I think it was the first time we'd heard the music on it, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is like," you know, I was nearly crying watching it. You know, I've got a young daughter. I'm watching this thing, and I'm like, "This is blowing my mind. This could be really special." So that was kind of the first time that we thought we had something.
You know, I think I got a email from Steve Fowler saying, "Holy shit, did you see this?" And you know, he sent it out to the whole agency, and that's kind of the way things like that happen. Now, sort of picking up on Maker a little bit, when we come back to Dead Island. I mean, you guys basically, something like a phenomenon like that starts to happen, and how can, maybe talk a little bit about what Maker does and how clients can bring sort of your pool of talent and your way of approaching video to take that and really amplify what, I mean, the hardest thing is to get the ball rolling, but so Axis got the ball rolling. How could someone use the services of Maker to really amplify that in today's sort of where things are headed with that?
No, I mean, amplification is definitely the right word. You know, we have a massive network of 400 channels who are some of the biggest tastemakers in sort of the YouTube space, and they can really sort of throw a huge amount of eyeballs and sort of interests around. So once something like that starts to, and that, you know, you can look at it from two different ways. You can look at it from having amazing content that just sort of naturally sort of grows an audience, and then we can amplify that, and you can see the sort of ripples across the internet as it gets sort of picked up and passed around. And then there's also the fact that because we control such a large, this large network, we can also sort of artificially sort of drive some traffic. But there is such value to having great creative and having an amazing trailer. You know, we can push eyeballs in one direction, but people won't stick around if the creative isn't wonderful.
Right, and a lot of times, I mean, when Maker is striking and things are, all the pistons are firing, you start to see the UGC take off in a really powerful way. And I'm not sure, was there much of that with Dead Island? Where the fans sort of got engaged?
Yeah.
It may have been a little early on that.
Yeah,
but.
well, no, what I found really interesting was that people took it, the first thing that happened was they recut it so that it wasn't out of sequence. And the next thing they did was they played the stuff that was going backwards, they played it forwards, and they recut it again. So they reconstructed the trailer so that you could see what actually happened as one moment. But then from there, it started to kind of get crazy, and people were doing like the dubstep version, and you know, they were doing live action versions of it. They were doing.
I didn't see the dubstep.
No, you didn't see the dubstep version? I'll send you a link to that. But you know, and it kind of started to kind of get out of control. But that was really exciting for me, and I think that's the thing where you realize that what you've created is really resonating with people, and it's back to that idea of you know, taking a risk and having a great piece of content. And I think, you know, the original video, Stu and I were flying back from London, and we're sitting in the airport, and it went live on IGN. It was about 8 o'clock at night. We're waiting for our flight. It went live on IGN, and I was like, "That's Stu. Oh, look at that! Wow, it's had 12,000 plays. Awesome." We woke up the next morning, and it had like, you know, 1.5 million or something like that. And I think, you know, that's just kind of like, we'll probably never recreate that again. That thing, whatever that thing was.
We're going to try, though.
Yeah, we can try, you know, and lots of people have approached us and said, you know, so what you did on Dead Island, can you do that for us? And that's quite a hard conversation to have, because it's all to do with, you know, a bunch of things coming together at one time. But I think with the advent of like the channels being much more focused and being able to kind of like drive the audience to view and get stuff out there much more, then I think, you know, you still need a strong piece of content, but your chances of that content getting a bigger set of eyeballs are probably higher than ever now.
Yeah, I would say to you, Nathan, like, do you find clients asking you to create the template for UGC? If you can create the thing that might propel other people to get engaged, this is the template for us. Maybe we can start that viral fire burning. Is that something that you see clients come to you for?
You know, a lot of what Maker does is relying very heavily on the talent for their creative and allowing the talent that's within our multi-channel network to really define what that creative is. And because it's YouTube, there's definitely much more of a sort of push and pull that happens between the client and the creative, because there's a huge amount of authenticity that these these huge game commentators and game casters and reviewers and people who also just make gameplay videos, people are coming to them to the tune of like hundreds of thousands of views a day, millions of views a week. They're coming to them because they're a unique voice, and there is that push and pull between the client and the talent to sort of create a template and be sort of comfortable with that template that is created. I know. We have this amazing channel called The Game Grumps. It's two guys talking over video games to the tune of hundreds of thousands of views a day. They're snarky, they're cynical, they're also very, very smart about video games. And when I come to them with a branded integration sort of opportunity, I know that there's going to have to be some back and forth between the client and the Game Grumps to sort of hit that tone. And that's kind of the back and forth that's happening right now is clients understanding and acknowledging that we control hundreds of thousands, millions of eyeballs, but their talent really does have a big say in the sort of content that's going up on their channel.
And so in terms of the storytelling and how the creative, it's kind of for both of you guys, this question, how important is that storytelling? How does it get defined? With Access, obviously, you guys are working directly with either developer or the advertising agency or the publisher directly. With you guys, it's really letting talent, I guess, come up with what they think is right, and obviously have the freedom to work.
Yeah.
From our perspective, this storytelling is everything. It's what we feel we bring to a project, to a relationship, to a collaborative experience with an agency or direct with publishers and developers, is our ability to think about taking that story that exists for the game and retelling it in a different way, in a way that we think's going to cut through or is going to be interesting. So we make a big deal out of that, and the fact that we're not just making trailers, but we're also doing, last year we did Halo 4 Spartan Ops, so we did 10 5-minute episodes, massive storytelling endeavor. It's like almost making a feature film. But we threw everything at that we had from a storytelling perspective, and we were lucky enough to be able to work with the writers at 343 Industries and be advise them on things where we felt like the script could change, because we're all about trying to make that story as compelling as possible. And I think that is what gives you a chance, and gives you a really strong chance of having a piece of content that these guys then might be able to really do something with.
So how do you, when a client comes to you for an announced trailer, so it's the first time to make that impression,
yeah.
How do you fight that battle where they say, well, the game has these 10 things that make it unique, make sure you hit all of those directly and tell a good story? And what's sort of that conversation like on your end?
Yeah, I think that's the tough part, and we have it with each other every now and again, is trying to hone in. You need to make that list of 10 a list of 3 or something like that, so that you're much more focused. And I think we were talking earlier outside about things being genuine, and feeling genuine. And if you start to tack on 10 kind of gameplay things that are box ticking exercises that you're tacking onto some trailer idea that you've got, people pick up on that, and they don't respond as well. So I think as much as possible, you kind of focus that list down and keep the story built around that and keep it as genuine as possible.
Stick to your guns.
Yeah, try.
Yeah. So in terms of on the maker side of things, it seems like these walls are getting sort of separated. We talked a little bit about this between your creative budget and your media budget. And it used to be they were siloed. They didn't really talk to one another. And those walls seem to be coming down. Can you tell me a little bit about sort of how you guys are approaching that and the opportunities that's creating for more content being funded with that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of more content, there's right now there is this. We spoke a little bit about it outside. This sort of push and pull between these big sort of announced trailers that really drop and create just huge amounts of noise, and the fact that YouTube is so much of a social community as well. It's an ecosystem where that's in some ways, like, you always have to have a conversation going with your viewers, and that you can have these sort of flash in the pan hits, but if you really want a sustained marketing campaign, if you really want the conversation to continue, you need to always be churning out content and always be sort of talking with your audience, and that's kind of the push and pull that's happening sort of right now. And Maker's very effective at sort of keeping that conversation going. Whether it's gameplay, it's a pre-release look at content, or driving a lot of eyeballs to a demo, allowing this talent to sort of act as a custom content sort of arm for campaigns has been really effective for us. I think a good illustration of that is some work that we did for Dead Space 3. To drive, when their demo dropped, they wanted to drive a lot of downloads to the demo, and we had this wonderful network of talent that was playing together regardless. They were playing any game together, and Dead Space 3 was really pushing their co-op. So there was a huge amount of authenticity in terms of like creating this content, getting a bunch of very unique pairings of different YouTubers together and getting them to play the demo, and then driving to the demo download page, and that was this a multi-million view campaign and amazing click-through rates, all because they were sort of continuing the conversation that had started with amazing sort of Dead Space 3 like big trailers, and then as we approached the release, the conversation continued through a YouTube network like ours.
Right, and you're seeing the terms authenticity and genuine being thrown around a lot. I'm sure it's something you guys are using as well as a reason to believe, a reason to spend the money towards this content. And I mean, what are the metrics like for that? I mean, are you seeing that because that content is more authentic, you're getting more shares, people are really hitting their boards and spreading it for you? Earned media.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an when these guys are playing a game, there's an advocacy that happens. They are playing this game because they love it and they want to experience. There's such added value there on top of instead of just having a pre-roll or a trailer. The fact that I love Total Biscuit and listen to Total Biscuit as a reviewer. I listen to him as a personality, and seeing him play a game and advocate on that game's behalf is amazing.
I mean, it seems to me that the conversation opens up a lot for the publishers, people with the money, to figure out how their marketing mix is split up. And Richard, you were telling me a little bit about the Killzone trailer that was done, where because there was an interactive element to it, that it allowed the trailer to exist far beyond just a view experience. And I'm just curious how you guys see something like that interactivity also playing into something Maker could do with, there was a way for these two groups to work together in a more seamless way, what the sort of expansion of eyeballs and engagements could be.
One of the things we're really interested in is, yes, we make CG trailers, and yes, they can be big extravaganzas, and sometimes they're smaller and they're smarter. But we're talking to a lot of people right now about the idea of, well, we want to take our storytelling skills and bring that to the party, no matter whether it's a real-time generated an engine trailer or whatever it is. We want to kind of bring that in there. So we're looking at our own production processes, how do we fit into that better. But I think the idea of creating trailers that could be interactive, I find really interesting, and especially if you wrap up that storytelling element in it as well. So it's it's a mini game almost in itself of storytelling and discovery of some type. Could be pretty nice. And I think the Killzone example, that was probably Killzone 2 maybe that they did that for. And there was a 30-second TV spot which was generated in the engine, and then you were able to download that TV spot via PSN to your PlayStation, and then go in and move the camera around and kind of rewind and play the footage and kind of just, watch the bullet penetrate the guy's skull or whatever it was that happened in there. And I think that's kind of exciting stuff. And to me, that's an extension of the user-generated content kind of ideas, like, and mixing it up with what the game is all about, which is an interactive element. But to me, it kind of needs all of those elements to work. You still need that storytelling element. You still need to hone in on a kind of marketing strategy, if you know what I mean, like a core message. But you build that other fun stuff around about it. But I think, I watched some stuff recently, which was for a feature film, and it was a HTML5 or WebGL kind of browser-based kind of thing. And you go into it and you see it and you think, yeah, it looks like it's quite a big space, and you can move around. It takes quite a long time to move around inside it. But actually what you got to do inside the space in 3D in terms of interaction was pitifully poor, in my opinion. Really disappointing for all the effort that it took me to scroll around through this space. It didn't pay off. So I think there's a danger of doing that wrong as well. But we're kind of looking at those ideas, as we're discussing with a couple of people, those kind of, how can we take our animation skills, our storytelling skills, but use WebGL or HTML5 to tell that story rather than pre-rendered CG or even in game, but kind of assets that cross over. And I think those are the things that can be pushed out again, and people willing, if they're right, will engage with.
Yeah, I'm really curious from the maker side where you've seen it work really well, where a high-end piece of content that was, brand building piece of content was in conjunction with your talent pool. Like it was feeding the content pool to go out there and speak to their people.
Yeah, a really good example of that work that Maker's done. I was responsible for a project, and this was before I sort of doubled down and became their guy for gaming and geek. We had a campaign that we were running for Pitch Perfect, which was very interactive and created a really successful piece of content when we brought together. Pitch Perfect was this a cappella movie that came out in the fall. Anna Kendrick was in, and they had an amazing an amazing social campaign. What Maker did was we combined Mike Tompkins, who was this fellow on YouTube who's famous for his a cappella covers of songs, the cast of Pitch Perfect, and then hundreds and hundreds of user submissions. Users submitted different sort of a cappella tracks, and we sort of put that together in this massive music video that did great traffic and was really sort of brought his audience to the table and allowed them to interact with this YouTube talent in the way that it was almost like wish fulfillment in sort of a way, being able to sort of sing with Mike Tompkins and sing with the cast of Pitch Perfect. Because I was running the project, I told my sister to submit, dropped her into it, and she was super excited. I mean, that's what she and she's a fan of Mike Tompkins, and that's what these fans want, and they want to be involved with the YouTube talent. They want to be part of that conversation.
I mean, we're always trying to find programs as an agency. When our clients come to us, we're always trying to find programs that completely integrate in the simplest and clearest way, where something that we set off in the CG trailer, maybe it finds its way into the game. Maybe it finds its way into a social campaign that kicks off a month later. Obviously, having the biggest voices in the Maker Studio supporting that or participating or being behind the curtain early on, I would think could be a tremendous boost to the reach a campaign could find.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really interests us is thinking about, when we're thinking about trailer ideas, is trying to think of them as something that could be bigger than just that one-off trailer. Mm-hmm. And that's what an agency's there to do. That's what you guys do really well. But I think if everyone can be kind of thinking a bit like that, then you get this kind of core that can run through an idea and continue to run and run and run. So even when it's going down and someone else is almost reinterpreting it, it should still be there. I think that's a really interesting potential.
Yeah, to go back to what you were saying about storytelling, it's been really exciting for me to see how storytelling is sort of maturing on YouTube and how there is much more room now than there was years ago. Years ago, we had a sense that like if you did a parody, if you were riffing off a pre-existing IP, that was something that could go viral. But now more and more there's an openness for these original these original ideas, original trailers to really sort of get some juice and get passed around. It's no longer just parody or music video, that kind of thing that is successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the gimmicks obviously bred the birth of that industry, but they have to mature.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you guys seeing as trends right now in terms of what lots of clients come to you either through agencies like Ayzenberg or directly as well. What are you finding are the most popular asks, even if they're annoying?
I think one of the things that Dead Island was, if you look at it simply, and that people are interested in doing is a companion story. So if they want to give a snapshot of their game, they don't have to show the hero character and the bad guy and all that sort of stuff. They can do a companion piece which sets the mood, the tone, gives a picture of the world, but doesn't actually need to focus the heroes. So that might partially be to do with where the game is at in development. Maybe that's still being refined or whatever. But I think that's an interesting thing because to me, that adds more layers to the game as a whole, and it's a different type of content that could branch off that other people can consume that isn't the game, or it can even draw people in who maybe wouldn't be on first look interested in the game, but that companion piece kind of draws them in. Dead Island, I think, in a way, did a bit of that. It made people who maybe wouldn't have bought a zombie game buy a zombie game.
What are you seeing?
Interactivity is definitely something that we're having a lot of conversations about. The way that because we're a company that's so reliant on the YouTube platform, the way that we respond to that quite often is using the YouTube annotation feature in very novel ways, having people collaborate or drive to each other in very novel ways in order to sort of serve that ask of interactivity, and then also a lot of sort of non-traditional integrations. Really custom content where people are, where there's, if somebody's vlogging, something is popping up behind them, or that kind of thing. Ways that the product is sort of placed in this content with these YouTube stars in very sort of unique, because we have such a close relationship with our talent in a way that other networks don't necessarily. Some other networks are essentially sort of ad aggregators where they're sort of putting hundreds of channels together, but it's really just sort of the pre-roll ad that they control. We're much more of sort of like in some ways, kind of a management company or an A&R company, and because we have that relationship with talent, we can go to them and find out their comfort level with really sort of tight custom content integrations in ways that you wouldn't sort of normally see.
One of the things that the whole summit is about is original content, and I think that the walls are down in terms of treating a product not as an individual product, but as an IP that could live well beyond that product. Everybody's dream is that you're creating a new IP that will have several iterations. And what are you guys' hopes for your companies as as clients come to you to propagate that IP and to illuminate future possibilities? Obviously, what Richard just talked about a little bit with companion stories is a start as well.
Yeah, for us, it's being involved earlier is the crux of it. I think if people are willing to let us in and get involved earlier, then there's a chance that things that we do or ideas that we have or even concepts that we create from a design perspective are people go, that's cool, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in the game, or that's going to influence the marketing strategy. And I think the worst type of feeling in a way when you're someone like Axis is being a last minute sort of service provider. That's the worst. That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing possible. It's like you get called up at the last minute to try and kind of just add a service that someone wants. The best thing possible is that kind of collaborative experience. That's how you're going to make something different, and that's going to make a difference. But I think that idea of kind of even on Spartan Ops, we were able to. We were given a fair amount of autonomy to go off and do things because we proved that we understood what the Halo universe was, and we knew how to operate within its parameters. So we were off designing things that we didn't wait on 343, for example's design and concept team to create, because we created it and they signed it off. So that you become more of an extension, and I think that's great. That's the difference.
I think, though, that can also speak to like a complexity that we're seeing right now between sort of YouTube and clients, developers, publishers, is that if they don't provide a story, sometimes YouTube will just go and do it, and they're just gonna Minecraft is an amazing example of that. Is there was no story there, and everybody on YouTube used it as an animation engine, used it to start telling stories, and that's exciting, but it's also a difficult relationship. It's sort of a push and pull of if you give us the tools, or if we just take the tools, we are going to start telling stories, and it's something that can start to run away from brand. Or if they are involved in the conversation, they can try to at least control or influence it in some ways, and that's something that we're seeing right now as a very sort of unique. I don't want to say conflict, but sort of a very unique sort of push and pull that's happening right now in terms of user-generated content.
Well, it's an interesting point. I know with Axis, just in the past, the best work comes out when there's this seamless collaboration between the client, the agency, and you guys, where a script idea gets passed around, it comes through, the Axis system gets better, client looks at it, has ideas, it gets better, and round it goes, and somehow this magic thing happens, and you've created this wonderful, it's better, the sum of its parts. It's just, the whole becomes amazing. With Maker, where clients are asked to relinquish a little control, that collaboration's not quite as evident. Can you sort of speak to that a little bit, and sort of how you get clients comfortable with that, and is there a level of collaboration that does happen, as opposed to YouTube celebrity, we've hired you, go do your thing, and we hope that people respond to it, and we hope it fits our brand. Right.
I mean, right now for us, and it's a lot about education, and a lot about this kind of push and pull with clients, and sort of figuring out what everybody's sort of comfortable with, because what we bring to the table is we bring talent to the table, and we bring more scale than anybody else can kind of control. But there is that sensitivity, that sort of brand sensitivity of making sure that we are portraying the brand, and sort of making sure that we're sort of hitting everything that they want to get across, and also not disparaging it in any way. And that's it's complex, but it's something it's a solvable problem. I think a lot of it has to do with, and I don't want to harp on this, but the authenticity, the having, we have this huge culture of, on YouTube, there's this huge culture of horror gaming, sort of horror gaming talent. People who are, whether or not you like it, like screaming their way through games like Amnesia or Slender, what have you. That is their bread and butter. That's what their audience expects. So pairing them with a game like Dead Space is like a real win. It's something that is in that sort of action horror genre, something that the developers want to see their fans scream their way through. That's a wonderful kind of partnership, and it is authentic, and it is. We also did some wonderful work for this indie game called Chivalry, and Chivalry is sort of an ultra-violent medieval first-person shooter where people are, axing each other, and that's putting all these YouTubers together in sort of a battle royale, and letting them sort of hack and slash each other to pieces is also great. That's what their audience wants to see. That's what they've done before in the past in terms of the first-person shooters that they've been playing, and that's a wonderful paid placement.
One of the things that we noticed just literally in probably the last month, 2 months, is that people are making Facebook games but those games they're not Farmville. They're aimed at kind of hardcore gamers or mid-core gamers. Are approaching us right now about trailer work, And that's something new. Those games are suddenly going, okay, we've got 11 million subscribers to our game, but there's 4 or 5 or 6 other competitors who have also got 11, 12, 14 million subscribers to their game. How are we going to cut through? And it's quite unusual, I think, to see those games make that step. And you were telling us a crazy stat about how many 45,000 mobile games made a year or something like that. How do those games, how do they get recognized above the other 44,999? It's a big challenge.
Are you seeing that for Maker as well, or no?
For
mobile stuff, mobile games?
Mobile is just starting to pick up recently. When it comes to creating YouTube content, there's technical hurdles that are just being addressed. When it comes to PC gaming and console gaming, everybody has a system. It's only a matter of time, and it's only a question of tech. Being able to capture the image and sort of talk over it. So we're seeing that happen as we speak. People are getting more and more into mobile gaming on YouTube and promoting those games and also sharing those games and helping their fans discover those games.